and welcome. In fact, the entire Dp2 team is here, and we're all going to come on camera just to give you a wave and a hello and to officially welcome all of you. So I think the rest of the team is coming on. Here they come. There's Pete and Brian and Tom, and we look like the Brady Bunch, don't we? In this webinar technology, everyone, this GoToWebinar, unfortunately, we don't have the control to let everybody on the call on camera, but you know, we see your names and we can see your faces along with your names, and we so appreciate you being here. These virtual opportunities are great, and I want to give a shout out to those of you that I was able to spend some time with at SPAC in Vegas. It was so awesome to see your smiles in person and to give hugs. And I think the best part of that for me was hearing your incredible success stories despite all of our challenges over the last couple of years, and how you made changes and you pivoted and you've ultimately come out on top. So we so appreciate you for that, for doing what you had to do. We so appreciate, as always, your support. If you can believe it, we are at version 25, which almost equates to 25 years, but I don't think exactly, but really, really close to a quarter of a century. I usually don't like it when people put 25 years in terms of a quarter of a century. It seems so much longer than 25 years. And many of you on the call have been through all of those years with Dp2 with us, and a big thank you to you for getting Dp2 where it is today after all these years. And our focus is on version 25. So with that, everyone, I'll spend a few minutes here getting things kicked off, and I'll go through a few slides that I have in my PowerPoint presentation, and then I will switch over to Dp2 and give you an idea of what's happening as far as the user interface. So let me just start out here, and I'll kick things off by starting to talk about our third-party integrations that we're so happy for you that you have seamless workflows now right from within Dp2 to work with Skylab, Perfectly Clear, or Viesus, or a combination thereof. A big shout out to our development team and their development teams for making this happen for all of you. Talk about a workflow improvement and efficiency. If you can, you know, use one of these vendors or a combination of vendors to get your color optimization and or your cropping done for you in a more streamlined fashion, then we hope you enjoy the opportunity to test those solutions out. You'd have to do that by getting in touch with each of them respectively. Of course, there's their side of the setup, and then I'll be showing you our Dp2 side of the setup, but we're really happy to have these integrations in version 25 for you. I'll only take up about 15 minutes of the call at the top of the hour here, and then Pat's going to come on and she's going to go through the rest of what's new. I shouldn't say the rest, because there's a huge long list of what's new in version 25. It amazes me when I look at the what's new list for version 25. I'll show it to you when I get into Dp2. But Pat's going to highlight some awesome features. We know that you'll love the new Filmstrip view as part of the subject information workflow. And then she'll also talk about some user interface enhancements, command importer, and scripting enhancements. And as soon as you get version 25, be sure to go to your help menu and check out what's new. It's a long list. We'd love you to print it out and pass it out to people in the lab, whether they're in operations or whether they're doing some programming. We are sure and hopeful that you will find many items on the very rich what's new list that is going to help you out. In this session, by no means, everyone, We wanted to keep it to an hour's length. We thought that would work well for you to not take up a lot of your time, just to whet your appetite for version 25. But by no means is this a training session. It's not your be all end all. We love it when we hear from you via service desk. So when you do find something on the list that you have questions about, that you need some help on, we certainly trust that you will get in touch with us. So just a few more bullet items I'll go through here with each of the third-party artificial intelligence integrations that we've put together in no particular order. You know, we are very impartial participants in this. Like I said, we are absolutely thrilled to have had the opportunity to integrate with these vendors. But I'm actually presenting them in the list that you will find them. When I switch over to Dp2, I'll show you. I'm presenting these vendors in the list in which they're listed on our taskbars and our right-click menus when you're operating in any one of them. And there also happen to be the order in which we completed the integrations as well. So first of all, Skylab, I know that many of you have worked or are working with Skylab outside of Dp2, so we think it will be interesting for you to streamline that, hopefully have an opportunity to streamline that even more coming from your Dp2 workflow interface. I'll focus mostly on these few bullet points I have for each one. I'll focus mostly on the integration side of the house, but I have just a sprinkling of other information in there too. For example, with Skylab, you will send them to train their algorithm your optimized images, perhaps tens of thousands of optimized images. And the key thing with Skylab is that you're working with database entries. So it's not the pixels of the images are not being touched. You're not dealing with a flattened image. We send a CSV file to a hot folder that is being monitored by the Skyport exe with a list of the images that need to be optimized. And then they return a text file. So you have to run a command importer for this solution. And they return a text file with DRGB, contrast, saturation, gamma, and more, and or crop values that hit the database. So the pixels of your images are not being touched. And that update is done via a command importer. So that's the important like operational piece that we sort of want you to walk away with, is that it's database entries and a command importer is required for us to get those entries into Dp2. For perfectly clear, you'll see me run this one too. They have a huge set of preset libraries for you to work with, whether it be portrait or newborn or outdoor. So you'll see me run one of those. I can't really remember which one. They offer you the opportunity. You'll have to check out the details with them on all of this really that pertains to just beginning to work with one of these vendors before sort of plugging and playing your license information into Dp2. They give you the option to work locally or via cloud processing, and you can talk with them about the difference between those two operational aspects. You'll see that when I run an image or images through this solution, Dp2 will make a backup copy of your original image, and then automatically the flattened corrected image is returned to Dp2. Of course, your path is updated, so it's all very seamless, and you'll see that happen. And then I will run the Viesus solution as well. They also work with default parameter sets and custom parameter sets that you further modify. Local processing is what Viesus uses for processing your images, and Dp2 again makes a backup copy of those images and returns a flattened image. And you'll see for these solutions, everyone, that we've given you the ability to delete those backup copies. You can restore the original image opposed to the one that has been returned to you. That might be important, like during your trial and testing with any one of or combination thereof of these vendors. So I'm going to switch over now to dp2 so that I can pretty much show you the integration pieces firsthand. So let me just switch over to dp2 and I'll walk through these items here with you. By the way, everyone, you do have a question panel in your GoToWebinar section of different panels. Feel free to shoot us a question during the webinar. The entire dp2 team is, of course, on the call, and we can address those questions by bouncing back to you. We'll have some time during this hour-long session to hopefully open up the phone line for those of you that have a question during those times during this webinar, and we can speak with you live as well. So the first thing I want to show you in dp2 is this very healthy version 25 what's new document. So hopefully that's the first thing you do after you install dp2. These links, hot links, take you to everything you need to know about getting Perfectly Clear, Skylab, or Viesus set up in the system. And that's after you've worked with, one or more of the vendors respectively to get your license and licensing information that's going to be required for the connectivity. It's really just plug and play, as you'll see here in a minute in dp2. Enhancements to dp2's command importer, subject information enhancements, layout capabilities with a new function there, general enhancement when it comes to the render engine, and user interface enhancements and scripting improvements. See, I told you it was a long list, so we're really happy with the robust set of features that are in version 25. And the next thing I'm going to show you guys, because I have to kind of get through this quickly. So again, this is not your be all end all. On the Analyzing tab in dp2, this is where you can access the respective setups for each of these vendors. In Skylab, just for example, guys, I don't have time to get into it in too much detail. Skyport is monitoring an input folder for the CSV file that we create for them, and then they send back the results in an output folder that is being monitored by a command importer. You'll need to push this button once for a little action handler that gets created in that folder so that we know what to do with it. Just for example, Perfectly Clear, you're going to plug in your cloud API key once you have that from Perfectly Clear. And similarly with the Viesus setup, you'll plug in what's called a GUID to verify that license and that connectivity in dp2. And then you'll also, for each of these solutions, or for Viesus and Perfectly Clear, you'll also have your image optimization parameter sets or profiles that you've created and have in your shared KPDP2 folder so that you can access them. So that's the setup. And then just real quick, everyone, just to sort of put the icing on the cake with these solutions. If you want to run individual images, that's from your right-click balance menu and order images. Or if you want to run entire orders, you're going to find that within the images right-click menu to process with one of the three vendors. And of course, for those of you who are into scripting and automating the things that I'm going to show you can be done manually, then there are new scripts in the script library that are respective to each of the vendors and integrating in a more automatic way if you want to do things behind the scenes and under the hood. So for this first one, I'm going to run them in the order in which they're presented. All of the dialog boxes look similar, but we'll tell you via their logo, via the title bar, which one, of course, you're running. I'm just going to submit this so that this can get started, and you'll begin to see pretty quickly how this works. In this particular case for Skylab, we have these blue icons, and when the results are returned, we'll get a black square in between. And just so that or in the center of that rather, and let me start a command importer, because that's one of the key pieces for integration, is that the command importer will get those results back. If I were to pop out to the Skylab or Skyport exe that's running, you can see some activity going on there too. And the command importer found those files. And if I show you inside the database really quickly, because I'm running out of time here, you'll see that those corrections were updated and made in the database. So that's Skylab. Let me just quickly grab a couple of other images. I'll zoom in on this one so that you can see the correction that for this example for perfectly clear that I'm going to use. You can, again, create your profiles, store them accordingly in your shared KPDP2 folder, and pick and choose, you know, whether it be newborn or beautify or skin correction or something like that. So I'll go ahead and submit this one from the perfectly clear user interface, and using a worker this time. Let me make sure I have a worker running. Let's see. Yeah, I'll run that. And the first thing that Dp2 did was make a perfectly clear backup copy. You might be able to see that at the bottom of the worker window that I have here. I did choose to run it locally. There is a cloud option as well. You can always ignore your rejected images. And then you can also, restore the images back very quickly to the original. I could process those again, and if I did so, eventually when I'm happy with the results, I could just, do a complete delete backup of those copies of those images. And then the last one I'll run for you guys. For this one, I think I pushed this to a very vivid point. I'm going to use this parameter set that really pops the vegetation in the background of these images. And the only reason I did that, well, twofold. I'm no color scientist. After 25 years plus of doing this, I still will leave color up to you guys, the pros. But you can see how those images, really popped. But I pushed that just so that you could see the results. So guys, it's pretty much as simple as that. Contact these vendors. I have a handout for you in the handout section of the GoToWebinar panel. You can download that PDF. I have hot links for each of the vendors in there. Check them out, talk to them about a trial license period so that you can check this out. And of course, we're here to help you on the integration side of it, but the help that's in Dp2 is phenomenal. You probably won't even need us, but we're here. And one thing I forgot to mention along the way, everyone, is that we do have this beta Insignia on all these setup and operational windows. And that's just because we haven't worked with enough of you at this point to make sure that, we've tackled everything that you need tackled. After 25 years, we always rely on you to tell us how things really work and how things might need to even change. But, so far in all of our testing and a couple of beta tests that are going on now, everything, the connectivity, of course, is spot on right there. So with that, everyone, I am going to turn the controls over to Pat so that she can take you through the rest. I don't want to jump on her time. So if you have questions about this, please shoot those into that question box, and then we'll be able to address those for you. So Pat, I think I gave you control, okay? Just think you're on mute there, Pat. That's okay.
We got all the buttons. So I just wanted to hop back on and say hi to everybody and kind of reiterate, what Kathy said about how great it is to have a touch point with everybody. And I am going to hop right into DP2. I'm going to kind of go right into the features. Again, I'm going to pretty much follow along on the what's new. I did want to add to what Kathy said, though. For those of you who have access to Service Desk, you can go onto Service Desk, and it's pretty close to the top. You can see the what's new and the cumulative changes. So I would really encourage you to go take a look. And I'm going to also reiterate what Kathy said. I'm going to do high level. I'm going to kind of show you. I'm not going to try to build anything because I want to be sure to get through all the different pieces and still have time to answer any questions. So remember the question pod. I won't be looking at it while I present because get distracted enough I can't remember the unmute button, right? So so please use that, and then we'll open it up for questions at the end. You know, and of course, you know, whatever else, I want to encourage you to get in touch with us, put in a ticket for help or training, or even just to ask questions, and because you know how to find us. So enough with the camera, and back onto DP2. Okay, so I'm going to start with some of the features that we've added for subject info and for the yearbook export. And within each one of these features, I mean, there's a lot. There's obviously the yearbook export and subject info is kind of at the heart of what we're doing for DP2. So the changes that we've made here are really to kind of enhance workflow, to make some things easier that, you know, we've always been able to do them, but maybe we haven't been able to do them the easy way. So that's really kind of what we're doing here. And I'm going to start in this. I have the whole order open because there's a couple of things I want to do, but I'm really going to be working in the subject info data table. This change fields button we've had here forever, but we've made some changes to it to make this a little bit easier for you guys to work with. We've added some capabilities here that we haven't had before. You know, we have the, I'm going to just change this so I don't mess around with the ID field. So we've had the ability, you can still use this. If I wanted to add, you know, a piece of data in any one of these fields, whether I selected a row or a whole column, you know, I could just make that change. This is not really any different than it has ever been, you know, and just make the change, right? Very simple. I'm going to cancel my changes. I'm just going back and forth, so you'll hear a few of those. So one of the other things that we've done is we've enabled the ability to put a random string into that field. Now, in this case, that random string is going to ignore that first value of 5. You see it at the front, but it's still going to add a random string to it. So you can, if I had left this blank, it would have just been the random string. Let me cancel that. So again, we've also added the capability to add a random number. And in this case, again, you're going to see that it's, I'm going to just leave the 5 there because it's easy. Because I think you get the point. But this will allow you to create all these random numbers. You don't need a value in here. It's just, again, for demo purposes. Then the last one is incrementing number. And again, the same thing is going to be true. You can start with a value. It's going to understand that value and then add an incrementing number inside of that, right? So if you wanted to add zeros to, you know, be able to manage hundreds or thousands of images or records in a data table, you would be able to go ahead and do that. So that's just kind of the first one. Let me get out of having everything selected. So those are some of the enhancements to change field values. And as a person who sometimes finds themselves changing these tables, I was pretty pleased with that one. So the next one, and I don't remember if we implemented this for this version, I didn't see any of the cumulative changes, and I did not go back to look in recent changes, is the ability that we've got the sort button. So you can implement any one of the sorts that you have in your lab to this table. And it's a good way if the data is coming in automatically, when we make some assumption that for most labs, that's what's happening. The data is being dropped into these tables for you automatically. It allows you to kind of look at not just your work, but, you know, kind of how things are grouped together and what classrooms look like and so on. So it's a good way of kind of previewing it. We did over the last year, implement the ability to get to the composite job generator from the subject info data table. So if you're not familiar with that, or you've not spent time clicking those buttons, you can automatically, you know, can get immediately in here. So if that's the work you're doing, you don't have to go around to other tables and buttons. The rest of these work pretty much the same. The button that's really brand new that represents what Kathy called and what we're calling our Filmstrip workflow is this little show button. And when we hit the show button, it gives us a Filmstrip view. And one of the things that it's doing is it's actually, I must have, oh yeah, so I have 40004 or 046 selected. So it's automatically taking me to that section of this Filmstrip view. And it's one of the things that it makes it kind of really easy. And I can scroll, I can, select groups. I have the opportunity here. I'm looking at this. If you look in that upper left where I've got, it gives me that nice dark tooltip. I can look at view all, or I can look at view selected only. So that way, if I'm looking for duplicates or I'm trying to find specific things, I can just look at the records for that, those specific things. Or again, I can look at all. And, it's going to allow me to kind of look at my whole order. So a couple of things, you can see what we've got going up here, and I'm going to kind of work my way back. I'm going to start over here on the right and work my way back so I can kind of explain a little bit of what's happening. One of the first capabilities that we added, by default, it's going to give you the primary keys, which is the order ID and then the subject ID. But we have the ability to customize each one of these subject info types, right? So if I create something specific to this subject info type, any order that I opened that references this subject info type will give me this list. But I can change it, and it's pretty simple, right? I can add just simply by doing this, and then I can move these around. If I wanted to change the order of them, I could go ahead and do that, and so on. So that way, when I'm looking at this, I'll be looking at just kind of exactly what I need to see. Right, I don't have anything in city, so it's a blank. I should probably add something. So just kind of as a way to reference the fluid nature of what's happening here, and it's a pretty smooth interface. So there's a couple of things that we've introduced in concepts that we've introduced here that are applied to the yearbook workflow, which I'll speak to in just a minute. But you can see here I have the three subjects for this particular, or three images for this particular subject record are highlighted here. And the first one is selected, it's got a red square around it, which is the one that I rejected. The second one has a yellow square around it, which is what we're calling secondary. And then this last one is my primary image. And I can go back, I can go back and forth. I can make this a secondary, I could reject this one, and so on. But it's our ability to kind of see everything at the same time. What we're seeing here is a reflection of the subject info data, right? Although some things, as an example, you would see in the images table, right? It's showing you where, I'm rejecting and marking as secondary. But this is really a reflection of what's happening in my subject info data and how I'm working with the data here. So the concept of secondary is this idea that what I might want to do is I may want to have, when I'm in a yearbook export workflow, I may have a secondary image that I want to write to that CD, that it's not rejected and it's not the primary image that I'm using, maybe to print in Dp2 as an example, but it is one that I want to have in addition to the primary image on that CD. And we've enabled that in that yearbook workflow. So that's really the concept here, is this gives you kind of that other layer to respond or to provide whatever, the yearbook company or the school is asking you for. And this came out of a lab request, is really how we got started here. So with that, I'm going to actually move to my yearbook export and kind of show you what is happening there as in addition to what's happened here. And again, these were interrelated. The changes were made kind of together, if you will. So I'm just going to go ahead and open my yearbook. If I can find it, how do you like that? Okay. So I'm not going to, in this case, I'm not going to manipulate a lot of data. I'm not actually going to run the export. I'm just going to kind of show you what's happening. But you'll notice here in the sample middle school, the setup that I'm using, I have, in addition to including all poses, I also have include secondary images. And what I entered here is the folder that I want those to go in, you know, when it builds those. And you can name this what you need to name it. I just named it secondary because it was easy, right? And what happens is that inside of that folder, when it creates the data for the yearbook output, it creates this secondary folder, and ultimately the image will be in there. I have a lot of junk in my printer queues right now because I've been doing a lot of experimenting, so I did not run it. So right now it's just a text file, but ultimately it would have all the other information in the image in there that you'd need. So just to give you a sense of kind of what this is designed to do. So I'm going to just deselect that for now. One of the other changes since I'm here that we've made to this whole yearbook workflow and to export to yearbook is the ability we've given you more capability around being able to adjust the crop or see the crop and manipulate it here. So I'm going to just select that adjust crop using button down here below. And now you're going to see it's going to give us 10 images instead of, it used to be just one. And of course we did that because sometimes that's late or there's other information, those first couple of images, which makes it hard to crop. So, and I just to kind of a review and I'll just kind of highlight it for those of you who don't use this workflow. If I were to select this image, right, then with my, little crop tool here, I could use my control or my shift keys if I needed to change this right now. And I can kind of do once I have that extra real estate, I can, manipulate this as I need to. Now, one of the things that we've added so they can kind of check while you're still in this interface and you don't have to bounce back and forth, which, I think will really enhance that workflow for folks who are kind of in here and doing this, is that ability to preview those images. So that now what I can do is I can refresh, so that I can see any changes that were made. And this shouldn't be dramatic, right? I didn't do that much. But again, it's going to allow me to see that, what's happening. And I just duplicated these, by the way, so that I could show you that primary, secondary, and reject. We also have the ability here at the top to change the size of these. And one thing to remember about the yearbook export is we're really dealing with jobs here, right? That's why I have that crop tool here and not the move tool here, so to speak, and not the crop tool over here, because I'm really looking at a job. So when you have a lot of images in your order, and depending on how many you want to see, it's just keeping in mind that you're rendering it to screen. So you may want to think about kind of the real estate of how long that would take if you had hundreds of images here, right? Because it kind of behaves in the same way. So those are the enhancements that we've made. And again, I know I'm doing this at a very high level, but there's a bunch of other things I'd like to get through that I can show you. So I'm not going to run things or do this in any more depth. So these are some of the enhancements which I happen to love, because I think these are some of the places where it's really nice that we can give you these, the operator some clues about what's going on. So the next change that I want to show you, and of course I'm really focusing on UI changes. I am actually going to do or show you what I can of some of the under the hood things. I'll just kind of list them and we'll talk a little bit about them. I have a couple of different ways that I can do that. So I'm going to open up my products window. Actually, let me close these. I'll let that open first. I don't think I'm going to need this order again. I can always reopen it if I do. One of the things that we've added is this. It's what I'm going to call a special effect, but it doesn't behave like special effects if you're familiar with those. It's that we've actually added a new keyword. And what we're calling this is replicate the edge. And it's a special effect where if you have a gallery wrap or a canvas wrap, it's going to stretch the edge pixels across that, these nodes. And I'll show you kind of how I did it, but well, I'm not going to do it, but I am going to talk a little bit about how I did it. And because we did it as a keyword, it's really easy to implement. So essentially what I did is I created a layout that had my basic node, it's an 8 by 10 on a, what is it, a 10 by 12. Sorry, a little distracted there. I don't know if you saw that, but I can't answer them now. I will stop and make sure that we get the questions answered. So hopefully that'll help. So what you're going to see here on the image node properties window, and it's on the images tab, is we have added a new section which says replicate edge pixels from node. And what happens is, this is my primary node, which is 10,000, right? And in these nodes that I created along the side, which would be that gallery or canvas wrap, my source node is 10,000, and I just said replicate the top. This is the right, the bottom, and the left. And it's really that simple. But it's a nice effect if you don't want to have to, add colors or, replicate parts of your image, right? If you don't want to have to do Photoshop things to create something that looks really, like that whole thing is wrapped, or you don't want to have to stretch the image. It's a really easy way to be able to do this. So I did want to show you that because we implemented it in a way which made it really easy, which I love. Okay, so the next piece of this that I'm going to talk about is that the command importer. And we've got a new screen. I'm just going to categories. And again, if you're not familiar with it, it's categories, import. I'm actually going to open up a command processing window. And I know that we've covered this actual interface. We covered it pretty much in depth in the version 24. And that video for the What's New for version 24 is up on our YouTube channel. So feel free to go ahead and look at that if you want some of the more operational things. I'm just going to cover the enhancements. And so I'm going to go to the handlers button. And some of the things that we've done here are, and that I want to talk about a little bit at high levels, we've started to think about this, and you can see that we've named it, right? Manage command importers. So we've started to move into that area where you can see, right? I have the workstations listed. They're listed here. This happens to be the workstation that I'm on. And that's going to allow me to view the settings and manage the settings. So as an administrator, now you don't have to go running around, running all over the lab to find kind of what you need or to make these changes. You can actually make the changes to both the instances, the auto starts, all those kinds of things. So you can enable and disable and change the number of instances just as examples. And you can do it right from this window. You can't start them from this window yet, but I did ask about that as I was going through this. But anyway, so so we're beginning to kind of take that path where kind of thinking about that at a higher level. And so some of the things, and I'll just do as a reminder so that those of you who aren't familiar might just kind of get a feel for what we're looking at. So you can see here from the dropdown, we've got CSV, JSON, skip, that's actually something for Skylab, and then XML. I'm going to select XML, which is the one that I have enabled. And if you recall, we created a directory, and dp2 looks in that directory for this action.txt, or what we're calling an action script. And I've got it set to run in the command importer, but with a little setup, I could queue it to a worker. Right, I haven't done that in this one because I just want to kind of stay here in the command importer. And then it's just showing you, right, there's my action text. Well, one of the things that we've added for this version is the ability to append code at the end of each command file. And I'm going to click on this because Tom did a really nice job of explaining it. I'm not expecting you to read that, but what I am going to say about it is that what that will allow you to do is again, we create a directory called append, and if the file goes in there called kpl.txt or kplcode.txt. I might have to go back and look that up, but what happens is you can write that. So that, say, as an example, you have information coming in from an order feeder, and you can't change that information, but you could add something to that information to have something else happen. Whatever that is in your lab. So there's opportunity there to begin to really kind of manipulate how this flows and to begin to extend the capabilities for automation in your lab. And I think it's a really nice thing. One other thing I do want to mention while we're here is that we also have the capability now to automate the entire yearbook export process in the command importer without any UI at all. So they've added a new class so that's possible to implement it all under the hood, which I think for some labs who are doing a lot of that work, that'll be really nice, a really nice add to what's going on. So just a couple of other little things I want to highlight. This is the action script that we're looking at here. And Tom, this is a fully featured text editor. So Tom's giving you, you can submit it, test it, debug it, look at the command import script. He's giving you the opportunity for keyboard to see the keyboard shortcuts, that are, within this, so that if yours is a lot more complicated than my little example here, you can go ahead and work on it right here. And he's giving you full capabilities to do that, which I think is kind of pretty special. So a couple of other UI enhancements that are simple. I'm going to go ahead and close this, but we're going to get really tight on time. So I want to go ahead and just make sure. This is one that I don't know, I can't remember exactly who we implemented this for, but it's one of those little things that we've implemented a lot of drag and drop in other places, and we hadn't done it here, which is the ability for you to be able to kind of drag any product into a package, so you can modify your packages really easily, because you can now hop back. You don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel. You can just modify the packages with drag and drop, which is one of the things I really liked. One of the other things, and probably the last thing, well, maybe not the last thing, it's a couple last things that I want to talk about, and this is really for the programmers. So if you don't have any affinity for programming at all, and it makes your head spin, close your eyes. No, I'm going to go to the programmer's assistant for a moment, because I want to talk a little bit about a couple of things that Tom has added to the programmer's assistant, and that's in tools. Both the ability down here, you can see the buttons on the left, at the bottom, 2 new buttons. One is to download Notepad++ if you don't have it, but to integrate with Notepad++. I've already done that, and I'm not going to do it again because that'll force me to open and close it again. But it's really simple. It's a couple of clicks. It's not going to fail you, I don't believe. But what's going to happen is it's going to enable a couple of things inside of Notepad++. Now, the first one I will point out, for those of you who are not familiar, right, in language, I have the opportunity to select KPL, which allows me to see everything color-coded. And, if you are programming in Dp2, then you'll recognize what the green and the blue and the brown and so on mean. But one of the things that we've added, which I think for those of you who work in Notepad++, you'll see this nice long list at the bottom of Run, which is open up a new session log, close it, clear one, open the session log, open and include file macros, my macros command. So there's some really nice, like, direct link. That integration will, I think, really, for those of you who are working in and out of this, I think that'll be really helpful. When you're trying to actually work and you have been forced to kind of go back and forth between Dp2 or other files and folders and things. So that's kind of the last thing I have to show you. There are a couple of things, just a couple of tiny more things, and I'm actually right on time. I've been kind of speeding through this, so I'll apologize if I went too fast. There are some new macros, so again, I'm going to encourage you to go to the cumulative changes and the what's new to get a feel for what those new macros are. Again, there's a series of bug fixes. There's all these other small under the hood pieces that are really, again, our intent is to provide more streamlined and better integration, trying to really figure out how to make it so that it's easier for you to integrate what you're doing with Dp2 and be able to kind of work back and forth seamlessly. And with that kind of sums up the very high level changes that we're making in Dp2 in version 25. And I think I guess I'll go to the question panel. I always get into trouble here. I'm going to go to the question panel, and some of them look like they've been answered. Right, Kathy, I'm not sure what
Yeah, it looks like Tom answered a couple of them, and everyone is privy to both the question and
good.
The answer. Thanks for that, Penny. And there's another one from Penny. I don't know if it's a follow-up to the other two. I'll read that one out loud. And I think this is referring back to, because they were talking about the film strip in the first couple of questions. So if I change it to all my users, yeah, the answer there is yes. Thanks, Tom. So we have that answer too. And Penny, I love this question because I think everyone I spoke to at SPAC had the same question about the next in-person workshop. We always remember those quite fondly, and we would love the opportunity to do more. And it's so nice. You guys are so nice. It's so nice when we hear that from you. Can we do another in-person workshop? Can you make some more crazy videos? Can we have some more casino nights or something like that? So much fun. So we will never say never, and we will meet this virtual way, I guess, you guys, in the time being. But we love that question. It means a lot to us. Thank you. There you go. Yeah, we can hear you. How you doing?
I just wanted to say hi.
Well, good. We're glad to hear your voice.
And it was nice to run into you at SPAC. And of course, we miss Pat, but just wanted to say hello to everybody, and hopefully we can see maybe more things coming up as far as some training and things like that. I know you guys have personally taught us a little bit more about the workers and things like that, and we've taken them kind of a long way. I just wasn't sure if there was anything else on the horizon with them that could help us out to automate some more things.
I was going to say, thank you very much. I miss you too. I'm going to say this though, that when you get to the survey, if you would just in that survey, describe some of the things, the types of automation, just kind of give us a sense of what you're thinking, because the answer to your question is yes, of course, we're always trying to enhance and improve and do some things that will make automation easier for you. But if there's a direction that you're going, it's tremendously helpful.
Will do. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And Penny, I will say, this is Tom, that we are starting now on 25.1. And one of the first things I've been working on is improvements to the workers, especially the ability to control them from any place, that type of stuff. But I'll throw this out to everybody that this is the time of the year where we are planning out what are we going to do for the next, in this case, 4 or 5 months or whatever it is until June or July. But if you got some ideas, put them in the service desk, because we are interested in working on what's appropriate currently. There are lots of things from many years ago people have suggested, but those wouldn't necessarily always be the best things for us to work on at the moment. So we'd love to hear from you. You can either do it in the survey or put something in the service desk. Either one will get it to our attention. I see Chris jumped in with any chance of an in-person Dp2 conference. So we were thinking about holding the next one in China. How many people would be willing to travel?
Mm-hmm.
Just kidding, of course.
We'll definitely note all your interest in an in-person workshop. I think we'd all like to get back to that spot.
And now that I live in Florida, I'd like to see us do it in Florida instead of Rochester.
Wait, only in the wintertime.
Right.
One more thanks to everybody. We very much appreciate your time, everyone. We hope that it, whet your appetite for version 25. We hope, whenever it's convenient for you to get on that, let us know, try out some of these features. We rely on you always to help us out, to start implementing these features and tell us how it can even get better from there. So please let us know. All right, guys. So I think that we'll do it. And if you don't mind looking at that survey, and it was really nice to work with you guys. Thanks so much for your time and for being here. Take care, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.